Yeah, well, I'm Jim Round, KBJ Round Farms, and been in the business for, I'm going to say 50 years. I think pretty close, and was president in 1995. Just a joy.
Uh, I've been in the business for,
Say who you are.
Dave Wildman is my name. And I've been in the business for probably 51 years.
50.
50. And what else do you want to know?
Where were you president?
Year you were president.
I was president in 1990. And
That's good.
that's good. You said so.
Okay, I'm Gail Wildman, and we started in I think we bought our first cattle in 1970. And the Canadian Red Angus Promotion Society was formed in 1972. And I was the first secretary, and from 72 to 82.
Okay, I'm Kirk Wildman, and I was president in 2010. And I guess been in the cattle my whole life. So at 72, I was just a baby, but I guess we've had the cattle ever since. I think I bought my first cow in 1978.
I'm Brett Wildman. I was president in 2017 and registered my first cattle in 1976 and had my first dispersal sale in this yard. They were all in the truck in about 1978 and restarted again.
I remember that day.
I came out to go to school that morning and all my cows were looking at me at the back of the old truck. So they weren't quite good enough to cut her, so then we started again.
That was the same as me. I was going to have my own little herd. And I bought my own heifer at Mackenzie's. I can't remember the year. And she didn't last the year.
Moneymaker.
Yeah, pretty big culling program at our place.
Yeah, yeah.
I could start again. I think I just remember all the characters and the people we've met over the years and the friends we've made. Lots of our best friends are from the cattle business, and I know my best man is a fellow Angus breeder from my wedding, and sure remember over the years all the characters and the fun we had, and the good friends and the good people that we met. You go to high school and your friends from high school are kind of there because you live in the same town, but the cattle people we have the same interests and the same things that get our juices flowing, I guess, and that's why they're our lifelong friends. So that's kind of what my takeaway from the Angus business has been.
I look back at, when you look at the Angus, the junior program with the Canadian Angus, the National Junior Show that was held in Bashaw for so many years, and you look at who is prevalent in the industry today, and just about every one of the, the big herds and the leader herds of today are kids that started at Bashaw at one point in their life. So it's that's quite a testament to that junior program that's still very active today with the Canadian juniors, that where they stay and what our future looks like.
Yeah, well, I'd sure follow with Kirk's on that. I'd say if one of your bigger achievements and most fun and Angus breeders, I mean, that's what makes the breed. The cattle make the breed, but the Angus breeders are the ones that
Really
make it all happen, and why you want to be in it on top of it. I mean, you're all here to make money, but we had run a hay shaker sale there, and we ran that with 5 of us for 25 years, and same group, which is quite an achievement. And in that time, you think of all the Angus breeders that we knew and came to the sale and went to their sales and stuff, that I think I'd say that's one of my biggest achievements would be not the sale as much as the people and stuff that the sale bought, and how long it lasted for individuals. And that's a testament to the people in the breed.
Well, I'd have to agree with Jim here. it's the people. It's a people business, and the people that make the business, and the cattle are secondary, as far as I'm concerned. You know, we've had the 41st sale here on the farm, and we've met a hell of a lot of people. And the boys here, they've met a lot of people that I've never met too. So it's really broadened out in the U.S. and Canada. And another thing that the business has done is we've traveled to a lot of different countries, and it's because of the cattle, and that's been pretty rewarding.
To add to Dave, I'm sure, just like you were saying, the amount of people that I find right now that when I go around, I don't go near as much as we used to, but the amount of young people like that are in the business that when we first started, well, there wasn't near as many people. There's sure a lot more people in the breed today, and a lot of young people. And you think, geez, I used to know, you know, being the Canadian president, you got to know more. You traveled back and forth, but you sure a lot of young people. There weren't that many young people back then, which is great. The more people, the better.
Yeah, and being going around the world too, in different places we've been with the World Forums and Secretariat meetings, we've gotten to, you know, have meals in Oxford's main dining hall, and got to do things that schmuck farmers from Sangudo don't get to do very often, right? And it's because of the Angus people and the connections and the different places we get to go and the people we get to meet. That it's been pretty cool that way too.
And this Red Angus thing, when we first started, the object was there was very little advertising being done on behalf of the red breed. And that was the mission for the Canadian Red Angus Promotion Society. And there was 12 breeders that started that. And we, for the first few years, we knew everybody. Everybody knew that, you know, whose kids were whose. And I guess now there's all kinds of Red Angus breeders that I don't know, and I don't get out. I'm like Jim, don't get out as much as I used to. But I guess when you look back, that's what we set out to do.
Yeah, and there's lots of breeders that have both colors now too, more than probably in the early days, right, Jim? Like,
I would say, and I know look in the book, but I'd say it's not tripled. It would be 100 times more.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, you know, all of us at one time, and I mean, people, well, this is just part of history. I mean, they thought if you had a red out of a black, well, you know, they had their views, everybody got their views, they thought it was no good. You might as well knock it on the head. Those same people started up Red Angus herds, lots of them. And when I say it's all about the money, lots of it, that's why it happened. It's good for the breed. I believe there's one breed and it's Angus, and there's red and black in it. That's the way we run ours for years after. Started with black. Gee, there's red and it's making money. We were into reds right away. They're only red and black. There's no difference in the cattle.
I got a Canadian Cattleman magazine from 1963, and in there's an ad in there from Beckton Stock Farm, and it was the red strain of Aberdeen Angus, they called it at that time. And in there also there's an ad for the first Cross Canada sale.
Oh, really?
It was coming in the fall, kind of a deal. So it was a whole new deal, a consignment sale. That was the first consignment sale in Canada.
And who put that up?
That was by Pickard and Associates.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh, he was the first. Yeah. Okay.
And that was a big sale in those days.
Oh,
like
yeah.
everybody came all the way. Like it was held in Macomb usually, or maybe always.
Yeah.
And all the Ontario people were here, and but it was. I don't know if there was ever a red sold in that sale.
Oh yeah.
Was
Yeah,
there
there was-
later?
I sold
there
red.
was,
In
there?
that. I
Did
sold
you?
red in that sale.
Okay.
Lots, during
Yeah.
the late, because you had
Yeah.
red roundup.
Yeah.
So that sort of was the cream going that way a lot of times. But there was lots of reds well, I shouldn't say lots because the sale didn't last. I don't know how many years it lasted. It must have been 20 years or
Yeah, it
better.
didn't go very far late into the 80s anyway.
No,
was it? It was
and then,
kinda early
but
80s.
I know, yeah, sold lots, and I mean that was the sale in Canada.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and they came like one
across.
ocean to ocean because they came out of PEI
Yeah.
and they came out of BC. So
And were they all selected for that sale? Like,
yep,
they were all
all the time I was there,
Yeah,
and
they-
Yeah, I think so.
what was
either
his first
Pickard or
name?
Doug did it.
Lloyd.
Doug,
Lloyd.
Lloyd.
Lloyd, and then
Lloyd.
Doug kind of took over.
Yeah, and then Doug
Yeah.
took it
Yeah,
over
yeah.
after with him, but Lloyd picked, and Lloyd was was just not good enough. He just tell you it's not good enough to go in. You got nothing
Yeah.
good enough.
Yeah.
Lloyd, that was Lloyd.
But I mean, in those early years of the Angus cattle, you know, there was a lot of years where you couldn't sell a black or a red animal. You know, they were all looking for the Charolais and
Yeah.
the Semitals
Yeah.
and whatnot. And I mean, it's only been, you know, the last 30, 40 years it's gained momentum. It's just a steady momentum.
Now, when you go to the auction market, I'm sure that over half the cattle are Angus cattle.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
Especially at Thorsby.
Yeah. Well, you go all, and you tell me. Anybody's gonna have to tell me how you got solid color semis and solid color limos, black or red. That never happened. That got bred by Angus,
Yeah.
and lots tried to say no, but that's just a fact.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's a huge Angus base. I mean, I think the latest numbers are 68% of the national cow herd is Angus base. So,
mhm.
I mean, there's reasons why it's red and black at the auction mart.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't remember what year, but there was a year when the Angus Association was in deep trouble. And that's when those life memberships came into
Yes.
play. And that sort of floated the Angus. And I don't know how many years, I can't remember now. And then it just went from there.
And they weren't paying per diem either.
No.
I know that for a fact.
Not even in 95?
Yeah, in 95 they got tough there too. Yeah.
But it was Don Matthews that was instrumental in getting the red into the herd book.
Yeah.
And I think 1968 was finally when, and of course he was not a red breeder at that time. There were very few red breeders in 68.
But there was a time in the 50s or the 40s you could register a red bull.
Yes.
Yes, there
And
was.
then they took that away in Canada.
Yeah.
And then it came back in about 68 or 69, was that
well, I
one,
think it
Mr.
was
Matthews?
68 when it, I think.
It's actually
So, yeah.
So, Jim, you think there was discussions about moving the office from Ontario to Regina and then Regina to
Well,
Calgary? I imagine there was some discussions about the red cattle coming back into the herd book in 1969.
Yeah, that I don't.
That's
That
before
I
your
don't
time.
know. I wasn't. I didn't get too involved till into the late 70s, where I got involved. But I mean, we had, as you know, we had lots of Alberta. Maybe people don't know too. Alberta, I think, had bigger meetings by far than the Canadian meetings, because I can remember some of those, and big discussion when the red and the black wanted in, and lots of heated discussion. But again, I think most of the people, when you sat down and talked with them, you can have those arguments because everybody's got their opinion. Nothing the matter with that. You just have to convince me on something. That's why I'll say, if you can bring up anything you like, and if you can convince me, great. Then good. And I think if more people did that, which we did, when you think about it, because it was pretty split, the red and the black at one time, and then they started getting together. Well, we joked about it. I mean, there was lots of jokes made, but it was still a tight group. It was Angus. It got that way, and it's just a great thing it did.
Well, Bashaw didn't hurt that either.
Yeah, yeah.
for mixing
yeah.
cattle and stuff.
Yeah, because kids get together, they don't care if you got reds or blacks.
Yeah.
But there was a time of, I don't remember the year either, but it was in between about 74 and 77, there was a Canadian meeting in Quebec. And at the time, things were being decided at Canadian meetings. It wasn't like it is now. So there might be 35 people at a Quebec meeting, and they're making policy for the Angus Association. And anyhow, they got their shirt in a knot, and we had to send somebody down from the Red group because they were wanting the Reds out again. So we sent David and Ken Fraser and Don McKenzie.
Yeah.
Not a good group.
Yeah.
to Quebec City.
You couldn't find anybody better.
And it was during Carnival too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was during Carnival. There's some not good pictures. Yeah. But anyhow, they didn't vote us out. It was good.
We were there in the Lebanon carnival.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's a big deal down there. There's some stuff that they drink. It's wine and beer mixed together in a long tube, and they drink this walking down the street. And,
I never would have tried it.
No, yeah, right.
We had a meeting there in the late '90s, wasn't it, Jim, in Quebec City?
Yeah.
I remember sitting on a patio at 2 or 3 in the morning because that was the only time you could be outside. It was so hot that year.
Oh, yeah, no, it was hot.
Sitting there
We
with
had a great meeting
Linda
down
and
there.
Rob and
Yeah, that was at what's the oldest place in Quebec City? Frontenac?
Frontenac.
Yeah.
Frontenac, that's where it was. So did some history and all that, and then I got introduced to the pub system they have down there, and that is absolutely great. That city was super. I mean, you could walk out and you could stop here, people gathered, you can, we just had lots, 2, 3 in the morning, we finally got things settled, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it was 2016 we had another one in Quebec City. We stayed up the street and we looked down onto the old city of Quebec and got into Doug Dumolowski and I got into one of the horse-drawn carts there to do the
Boy.
tour around, and about halfway through the tour we asked the little guy that was driving the cart if the English did actually win and they let you guys stay here, right? And that was when he just pulled everything to a halt and told us to get out. So we had to walk uphill. We should have maybe kept our
uphill
mouth shut
both
till we
ways.
got to the top of the hill, but
Well, I'd heard
oh yeah,
there's that little fort there kind of up on the
Yeah,
hill,
yeah.
and Ronnie Hansen was there on a tour, and they went through the history and something about if they stopped 15 minutes before the French would have been totally wiped out or something. And Ronnie says, I guess they should have lasted a little longer.
yeah,
But we like our French friends now.
yeah.
But you talk about the meetings and whatnot, and I mean that's where everybody gets together. But I mean back in the early '80s and through the 80s and '90s, I mean the Alberta Angus Club, there would be a small meeting would be 200 people.
yeah.
I mean it was
yeah.
huge gatherings at the provincial level.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
But in that time it seemed to be more of a distinct lines between either provincial or the Canadian Association. Now it's kind of amalgamated into one. There's still branches, but everybody seems to be a lot more inclusive in those than they used to be, for sure.
Yeah, I think for sure, because I can remember way back, they weren't very big meetings. Some of them, the Canadian ones.
No.
Yeah.
and they weren't all from, that's the good part when bringing some members from both sides always in. You get different opinions, and it's definitely different because, as I told, I gotta remember what his name was. We always sat together. Little guy, he was from Quebec forever. He must have been on there.
Pierre
Pierre
LaBerge.
LaBerge.
Pierre LaBerge.
Yeah.
He was
So-
on when David was on.
Yeah,
too.
and
He sat
he
next
He used
to
to
Dave.
sit right beside me. And he used to raise his hand if I raised mine.
But Pierre, he was talking about, how they should do registrations and stuff, and, the cost and all that, and they were thinking they should be cheaper. So I explained to him, I said, your herd would be a tenth of mine at that time, and I'm not complaining of what we could pay, so you shouldn't complain. Pierre and I had lots of good discussions, but I mean, a big herd down there was 20 cows, and that's just the fact. And so you definitely think different than as you go out west and you get into Alberta and Saskatchewan. and huge herds and stuff like that. So it was good that they're all in, because they were sure split more then. But over the years, I think the Canadian has done a great job on that mingling
Subject.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and early on to the Alberta Angus meetings, we always had at the same time as the Shorthorn Association and the Herefords, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know the Hereford and
Anyhow, they all had their separate meetings, but then in the evening, the banquets were held together and the entertainment and all that stuff. And even at the Canadian level, we used to do that with the Shorthorns at one
Yeah.
time.
That I don't remember. Yeah.
No, it'd be before your time.
Yeah. I'm younger, so yeah.
Much younger.
But it just shows that the associations weren't that big then.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then when there was changes with registration, like with National Livestock Records doing our registrations and then going in-house and moving the office around, that was in you guys' time, right?
yeah.
With moving from...
Were you involved when they moved from down east to Regina?
Well, yeah.
You weren't on the
Well,
board.
I wasn't on the board, but I was a member.
Yeah, I was a member too, but I don't remember. Just all of a sudden it was in Regina,
Yeah.
and
You might have been on the Alberta board at that time. I don't remember.
Yeah, it could have been.
And did the registrations go in-house in Regina, or were they in Alberta when it moved to Calgary? Can't remember that. Do you remember, Tina? Was it in Calgary when they first did them?
it was in Regina.
Nope.
No, in Calgary.
It wasn't
think
until
so. Or down
1996.
Yeah.
No. It was in Calgary, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In Calgary,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
1996, we started
Yeah.
doing registrations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've come a long ways where we can do it online now with registrations. National Livestock Records, you had to fill out those little cards all the time.
Yeah.
And they only so many letters and had to fill all the little boxes. So
Yeah.
it's definitely evolved.
Yeah.
Well, and if you did something wrong on the paper, they'd mail it back to you, right?
Yeah.
On the card. So if you had one letter wrong or one number off the edge, or if you didn't pay enough, you got it back in the mail, and then you'd have to send the check
Yeah,
again in the mail. And it's,
Well, there was no computers.
yeah,
When we started,
Yeah.
everything was done by hand.
And same, I think, less paperwork by far. So that, the one story they told us that computers were going to solve all that, save trees. That didn't happen either. So
yeah. Remember when you used to get the printouts of your EPDs every year, and it'd
Yeah.
be a stack of paper
Yeah.
like this?
yeah,
To think that now we're trying to.
Yeah.
Well, we're back to using paper bags now anyway too. Everything cycles around.
Comes around, goes around.
but when you say moving the office, that was a big deal to move the office out of Regina and get it to Calgary or to Alberta, because computers were in, but they weren't as, because now it doesn't, in a way, it doesn't really matter where you're at. But at that time, and I can tell you a story on how that, and I mentioned Stan Rice, and he was from Saskatchewan, so he was definitely looking after Saskatchewan. I think at that time we must have had, I'm going to say 4 maybe from Saskatchewan, and 5 or 6 from, maybe 5 from Alberta, and a couple, So we talked about this about 3 meetings in a row. We talked about it. The last meeting, we tabled it. Stan said, well, we're going to table it so you're doing your politicking and lobbying. And so we started again at the meeting, and we were going through, and then Stan had done his lobbying, and but not quite enough. I didn't think he was right there. So anyhow, he brings up, he says, I think we should table this. And I said, Stan, there's no way in hell we're tabling this. We've done that enough times. We've been through it. You guys know enough. That's done. We're going to vote right now. Oh, bang, we voted, passed. We went out, back. Like Stan and I always went for a drink after, and he says, you bugger, you. If I would have got it tabled again, it wouldn't have moved. Because he was working on different ones, and he had them coming. Every meeting he got one more guy voting his way. Yeah, Stan was a pretty good guy. Yep.
He should have been a politician.
Yeah, he was of the head of the hospital in Prince Albert. He
Yeah.
was the head honcho out there, so he'd done some politicking to get there probably. So, but yeah,
So was it by region, the board members at that time too, Jim? There was somebody from Alberta, somebody from Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has always been that same
Yeah.
Well,
scenario
it's
as we have now.
similar.
yeah. I don't know what it is today. I don't pay that much attention anymore, but I know that it was good because you know they had it was sort of on cattle, and that's
Yeah.
what it should have been.
Yeah.
You know, and
And
you
based-
can't have.
On numbers.
You can't have it on you know a number of people, but definitely it is. I think it's right when they do that. If there's X number of cattle, that holds one guy,
Yeah,
and
that's basically how it is. still.
double, triple, whatever it is. You have more, and it's fair for the amount of cattle. And then everybody still got their input. That's the biggest thing,
Yeah.
and which is good.
And I mean, when you look at our country, I mean, as diverse as the landscape is, I mean, so are the people.
Yes.
So I mean, to have the whole representation of the country, and based on numbers of cattle, I mean, still works pretty good.
Yeah.
It's amazing though, and I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are, but I think the average cow herd in Canada is still only about 25 head.
Really.
Yes. Even though the big are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, there's still a very small percentage that are actually over 200 cows. We're a pile of members between 5 and 20 cows.
Yeah.
There is.
Have you got those figures?
Not on your hand.
No, but I just wondered if you. If
Oh
they,
yeah, they're out there
They're
for
in
sure.
the annual report.
Yeah.
The breakdown.
Yeah.
One-
And it's not a lot of different from the U.S. I mean, the American Black Angus Association, 65% of their members have under 10 cows.
Yeah.
Oh, same
Yeah.
thing.
So it's the same, similar type of deal as we are, as numbers wise here.
Well, and you mentioned going for a drink with Stan. That we had some guys when I was on the board with very differing opinions on things, and we'd argue about stuff. But then I remember John Divenvoorde and I, we'd always go for a drink, right? And John and I came from different spectrums.
Yeah, I know
At
John.
but good guy, and we always got along so good after. You know, you say your thing, and we never carried anything past the meeting time, and got to be really good friends actually, and stuff. So, and with guys from, you know, and the guys out east, there was lots of different political leanings out there too. So you had to learn to work with everybody. But it was, I think, the board level thing was really good, and we talked a little bit about the terms. You know, a 3-year term is pretty good too, because the first year or two you're trying to figure things out, and then you can start actually getting into policy and making things happen.
Well, when we were on the board too, I wasn't on the board, but the wives all kind of hung together, the board wives, you know, and there was always something set up at Canadian meetings for the women to do, and so we really had some good friends up in that. Were you only on one term?
Pardon me?
Were you only on the board one term? Or twice? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I think he was on for 2. We're getting old. We can't remember
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Well, I know when I was president, I guess I'd say moving the office was the biggest thing, because that was talked about before I got on, because we were on for 3 years or whatever on board and executive and all that stuff. And that was always talked about, so that was a big, I guess, a coup that we got moved it. And I felt I did a fair bit of push on that, and lots of discussion. It wasn't just pushed through. So that was, and I believe today it definitely was the right place to go. It's worked out well. Could have worked out well in Regina too, maybe, but I know it definitely worked out well in Calgary. With another thing that was always brought up at that time, what did we have? 3 AI studs. There
Yeah.
we would have had 3 going full blast back at that time, which was good. So people flew in, especially international. They flew into Calgary easier. That was one of our big reasons for moving it. And I still think it is today. It's better. There's more there. I guess there's down south too, so they are around. But I guess that would be mine that I would say when I was on.
The biggest thing I was on was the magazine.
Forgot about that.
Because you guys,
I haven't.
you had the magazine in house at that time, right, Dad?
Well, yeah. Well, it was when they signed that contract, that's
Well, Dick had it first, right?
yes, and then they kind of dumped him, and then they wanted to sign a contract, and I wasn't in agreement with that either, but it passed. So
Yep.
Yeah, because it was in-house for a little while, but that wasn't working out very well
No,
either, right?
no.
You guys weren't. It wasn't a money maker by any means. It was a money loser. So then,
Well, you had to have somebody full time on it. I mean, it wasn't a part-time job.
yeah,
Right.
We were lucky that Dick, was so good because he was around and he did a lot of
extra.
extra. It was,
Well, and that's going back to a different generation of you didn't have to be paid a bunch of money to do something you loved almost. That sort of a thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's a different world because we have a lot different responsibilities and way more things to spend money on now and all that kind of stuff. But similar with when you were the secretary, Mom, that was all volunteer, right?
Oh, yes.
And now it's, we have more of a revolving door, I think, because you got to pay wages and that I don't think it's a terrible thing, but it's just a different time too. We spend so much more time running around with our kids and doing other things like that. It's not just focused on the cows anymore. So
No, when I quit the secretary in 1982, I had to buy my own typewriter, and they were paying me $1,200 a year. It was good.
$100 a month.
Yeah.
we won't comment.
And we used to put a newsletter out every month. And I worked at the hospital in Mayerthorpe, so I got permission to use the Gestetner. You used to type on these thingies and put them in, and then you rolled her through with a crank.
Oh,
I
really?
used to do that on nights. Yes.
But I got the job of hiring. I was on too, and we hired Doug Fee.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was just about a lifer.
Yeah, he was there a long time. He always joked because he was a member of Parliament, at one time. And then I think he must have been in 2 years, and then he was thinking of a raise, and we still weren't making much money back then. And that's when I was on as president. So he was driving me to the airport, and he said, "Well, how did it go?" And I said, "Guess what? You're not getting a raise." He said, "Goddamn farmers." He said, "I never thought I'd be turned down getting a raise from a farmer." Yeah, but Dick turned out to be very good. Did lots for the Canadian, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got raises later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got
That's a
more
segue to me, I guess. So when I was president, there was lots of stuff going on, but one of it was the transition of Doug's retirement, sort of an idea, and then moving on to Rob, and so we had to search for a CEO at that time and went through that whole process. We had lots of fun though. In the fall of that year, we decided to get rid of aerosols, and motion came through the meeting, and it was based on the health aspects of all the aerosols in the barns at these shows and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
And that's where that was the spirit of the motion, and it was passed, and the idea that all these aerosols and all this paint was hard on lots of young people and older people too in the barns and everything.
Oh, and not only participants, like sightseers and all
Yeah, and
whole
it's
bit.
probably not good for the cattle either. So that was passed in the summer, and then come fall, it was quite controversial, and so I got to go and have these little there were meetings where people yelled at me and didn't like the rule and everything, but basically I said, well, and I got to use a white towel and police it that first fall. And I remember we'd been in Brandon, and we'd gone through Edmonton and then Brandon, and then we went, Brandon was pretty good because they were almost policing themselves. And we were flying from Brandon to Toronto. Toronto's show was the next day, and I remember Tom McDonald was on the board at that time from Ontario director, and he phoned me and he said, "Are you getting here early tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." He said, "Okay, good, because this isn't going well." And he'd had quite a few guys on his back, and Tom was a pretty quiet guy, and a lot of these people are his friends too, right? And breeders that elected him and stuff. So Doug and I showed up there that morning, and there was a bunch of guys ready to fight, or wanting to fight, and basically I just said, well, here's how it is. And I sat there for the whole female show with a white towel in my hand, checking cattle as they went in, and it was kind of sad that had to happen. But then by the time the bulls came around, I got to watch the show because they knew we were serious about it and stuff. And then later on, that it evolved into where we had some members come forward and give a presentation about maybe the aerosol thing was going too far, but if we got rid of paint, that would kind of solve the use of as many aerosols as we had been, but still let people dress cattle like they had and fit cattle like they had. So it was, and now that's kind of a standard, the no paint rule throughout a lot of the breeds, and it's, it's still there in part of the shows, but it's kind of it's gone away. But at the time, it was a real controversy, that's for sure. To go through a bunch of...
And that's why you need a Canadian. You
Right,
know, you
yeah.
need a Canadian because it's right across Canada.
Yeah.
It's not happening just in Alberta or one. And
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
stick we had was that Gold Show funding was was a Canadian Angus deal, right? So if you didn't follow the rules, then we were going to pull the funding. Was the theory. So that's how we got the committees on our side, because it's a fair amount of dollars per animal, and so we got through it. But it was it was pretty controversial at the time. That's for sure.
It sure divided lines. It put lines up between the show people and the guys that didn't show, because the guys that didn't show, they thought it was a great deal.
yeah.
But they hadn't been to a show either, some of them, ever in their lives.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it definitely was a bit of a controversy. So mine was probably the same as Dad's and Jim's there when we decided to look for a new CEO. And I mean, it always creates controversy when you get, everybody knows everybody, everybody's family, or everybody's related to somebody, and everybody gets pretty passionate about, how they're involved in the industry. And that's when when we started looking for a new CEO, that really came into effect, that how close and tight-knit things really are.
Yeah.
And, we had to look at the whole big picture, what's best for the organization, for the whole for the whole country, not just, certain group of families and whatnot. So that was one of the things that was hard for us as directors, I know, when I was president, is to make that decision knowing that it is going to affect personal relationships. And, we talked about the people part of it, and that's what makes our breed great and all this. But it is also one of the curses of it. It is so tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody takes everything, and, it affects them personally. So that was one of the big challenges for me when I was as president, for darn sure.
Well, it's serious. It's the guy that's going to run her, so it better be the right guy.
Yeah,
It's not just, well, I'll get rid of him tomorrow. It is, which is good. I think we've done a good job, more or less.
And especially now when you look
Dave,
at,
not so
the
much.
business of it. I mean, we're now a $7 to $8 million deal every year. Where it was, a budget of $1.5 million to $2 million at one time, and it's just evolving. It's getting to be where it's big business, and it's changing, and you got to change with it.
And when you talk about that with becoming a Canadian board member too, it's you do get elected by your province, but you have to look at it as a Canadian thing when you get there too, and it's you kind of what's best for the breed. You have to take your personal
Yeah, you had to chuck that out the window.
yeah, you basically you're a breeder, but you have to almost put aside your own ranch for that term while you're there, and make decisions that work for everybody. Because there are some times when you don't agree with how the vote went, but if once it's passed by the board, and you have to stick by them. And so yeah, sometimes it doesn't always go your way, but then when I was on the board, we went through the changing of the office, of buying the office too, and that was quite an involved. It took quite a few years to get. You go from renting an office as an expense, but as cattle people, most of us have owned throughout the years, right? And with our land being worth more as we go, it's been a good investment and stuff. So it was we had the mentality of ranchers and wanting to own things versus renting, and I think it's worked out pretty good. But it wasn't an easy decision to to spend all that money and buy the office and go through all that. And I'm sure it still comes up as you.
Well, it does.
as
I
you
mean,
go.
as the baby boomers, like Jim and Dad, that age of, wanting to acquire a land base and whatnot, our new millennials, they really don't care to own anything. When it really comes down to
Yeah.
it. So
Just like these oil companies.
Yeah.
So I mean, as this evolves over the next 10, 15 years, it may become a time where we revisit again. What's the fate of the office? Do we need to own it, or do we need to rent again? And I mean, as our membership ages, maybe that need to own isn't as great anymore.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all goes forward. But it was kind of like Doug says, it was a lot of politicking to make it happen, and
Oh yeah.
and to see where you'd go.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, and it's a great office. I mean, I'm still there. I'm on the way out, so spending money isn't. I've never been against spending money. That's just the way thing. But it is a big expense. There's no. I always told them way back. I don't care what you do. You can hire all this. Registration is $15 a head, and the more we register, we shouldn't be spending all our money for other things.
Mhm.
But that's sure changed, and for the better. There's lots of good things that are and programs that are in there and stuff like that, and it's just sign of the times. Lots of that change. I don't know if it's all beneficial, but I think nobody's doing it just to do it. They're doing it because they think it's
The right
going
thing.
to the right thing. Just like $15 a registration was the right thing
Yeah.
way back. But talking to, I was one of the other things I was going to say is like when one of the big things was blooding and that of all sires and that, and I remember that was God, you can't have that. But that has sure made our breed stronger by a whole bunch.
Yes.
I mean, it's something that it'll never be perfect, I don't think. But the more you do, the better. And I just had a fellow that had bought something 10 years ago call me, and he's flushing the cow, and the cow don't work. And he said, I thought, he said, you got anything? I looked back, and sure enough, there it was. And I said, it has to be this bull. Sent it, bang, it was on. Well, that's the way it should be, because he was in there, and I mean, it's been going on for years, so that was a good decision that was made. But it was lots of discussion on it. Didn't think it was in there, and why are we paying this money and all that. But so
We still have those same discussions today. Now we've evolved one more step from just doing the AI sires. Now all walking sires need to be parentage verified.
yeah,
And it's just one more step that's to make it sure that our breed, it has as much integrity as our herd book says it is. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one of our underlying strengths is that herd book, and that we haven't diluted the breed over the last 40 years or whatever,
Right.
like many of them have, right?
yeah,
Even
yeah,
the Shorthorns went to an appendix herd book and stuff like that too, right? So
yeah.
There's very few pure straight lines of cattle. The Herefords and the Angus are the only two that are really left.
Yeah.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because I know all open book on all the others. You could mingle them in
Mix and match.
semis. I mean,
yeah.
that would have saved those breeds. They should look at it. We saved them.
Yeah.
Were you guys involved when we had Canadian Angus beef program and stuff like that? And
Oh yeah,
Yes.
maybe you guys should talk a little about the history of that, because when we think about the strength of the Angus breed, a big part of it was the certified Angus beef program in the States and making black cattle popular again, right? And if you guys want to talk a little, that's before our time, but as far as that, Canada had an Angus beef program and how that worked and how it ended.
Well, I was down. I don't know if you went to Better Beef. I was down to Better Beef 2-3 times. That's who in Ontario.
Yeah.
Right.
That's who we dealt with, and we're trying to bring it. I mean, we did lots of work on it, but we were always running into certified Angus. The U.S. and stuff was always, whose was better or whatever. In the end, when you look at it, we could have saved a lot of money and done nothing, because it all got, once it got popular at a restaurant, it sold itself.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, that's what we wanted to happen, and I'm sure it's the right thing we all did, but once that's what we wanted to, and people did their own effort, all of a sudden somebody, Black Angus, that's the one, bang, it was there, and then after the Red and Black Inn, it was just Angus, and the way it is. And it's certainly, I mean, you have ones that they don't, I've talked to people that haven't got a clue, and they just, oh, we have to have Angus beef. That's the way they talk. Well, that's absolutely super.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
so,
and that's
And that never used to happen.
oh, no. So it was it's been a big seller. There's no question about it. And the U.S. just oversold us, and we didn't have to do any more. As far as I know, we
right.
don't have to do much because they're doing all the advertising for us, and then all the steakhouses and look at McDonald's, Angus beef. I mean, it's right on there. I mean,
Yeah.
how can you get better than that? And that's what we want it to happen. And yeah, it's had its small beginnings at first. I know that. Yeah, 'cause we were down on that, but it all turned out pretty good.
Hmm. Yeah. So as an Angus association, the idea was to promote Angus beef, not really to make a bunch of money off the program. And
No, that's
and
exactly. Yeah, it was all about.
and because the acronym was so close, you kind of had to get out of the business, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But, but in the end, the promotion of the Angus beef was why you did it in the first place. So it kind of worked out anyway.
Yeah. That's right. That's it. Wasn't to make. There was no way we were gonna make money at it. We were doing it as an advertising backdoor type of deal. The other way, it's just trying to advertise our beef, and then we had the product again. That's the thing. It just didn't evolve. We had the product. If it would have been poor and then tough, it wouldn't have probably got where it is today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it not evolved over 2 and 3 decades. I mean, it wasn't. It didn't just happen overnight. Even the CAB brand in the U.S.
Oh.
I mean, it struggled for a lot of years
Yeah.
before it started to finally take a little bit of traction, and now it's the monster machine. It's
Yep.
but it's none of these programs happened overnight. I mean, the Rancher Endorse program that was back in 2007 to 9 in there. I mean, it got revitalized again last year, and we're actually using that branding again. So even the stuff that's kind of gets put by the wayside for maybe 10 years, it does gain traction again, and now we're using that as a part of an advertising for people to send beef all over the world that is actually backed by the Green Angus tag and Rancher Endorse. So I mean, some of these ideas, they get maybe set aside for a bit, but then away they go again. So.
Well, that was at the World Angus Forum in 2009 when they rolled it out, because one of your bulls had the logo painted on his side.
Yeah,
remember?
that's right. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
We did that.
No, that and again, when you talk all these shows, and that's all different parts. I mean, some people don't like shows, but they have to realize that's what people. Some of you got to be out there. They're not all going to come and watch them in the pasture. They see them at shows. I mean, be against sometimes. Too much showing way back. You think, yeah, but that's why we have the breed we have today, because they can compete against other breeds, show against other breeds. So the show ring has been just one more tool that we and right across Canada again. So there's nothing, and that's a lot of people that do that. It's costly, but boy, if we didn't have that, we'd be sitting in the back seat in a lot of places too.
Yeah, I mean, from 85 to 95, it wasn't uncommon to go to Edmonton or Agribition and see 1,500 head of Angus cattle in the barns.
Yeah.
So it's a huge way to look at a lot of cattle, look at a lot of different programs, and see them all in the same roof.
Well, and even now when we do, Angus does well on all these Supreme shows and stuff too, and that, even if you're not a show guy, I'm pretty sure they're pretty proud when an Angus one wins, even if you're an Angus breeder, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you some, it's almost like it's Angus against the rest of them kind of a thing. And so it's when you're the top dog, you got to stay up there, and everybody wants to take you down.
Yeah, and that's the toughest part, to stay on top. You've got to be on top of it all the time. If you don't do anything, if you just stop doing it, progress would stop on that.
For
on your
sure.
breed. And,
Yeah. On all the things, just like all the stuff we've talked about, the advertising, the
Yeah.
showing, all the beef, it all filters in. If it just stopped it all and said, well, we're good, we're up there, boy, I think we'd...
Well, that's one of the things we discuss right now around the boardroom table is, what does the next 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years look like? Back, in the early 80s, there was, the pork industry had all different kinds of breed associations and different breeds of hogs, as well as the poultries and all that. They went to basically a straight commercial, straight deal. There's no associations. There's a pig now that makes bacon and pork, and there's chicken that makes a chicken. So, we always wonder, what's our viability in the next 20 years? Is there, where cattle is in the Quarter Horse Association are about some of the biggest registrations that there is.
Yeah.
And so we always wonder about that, if we're going to have a place in 30 years.
Well, it's true. Yeah, it's all possible. Everything's changing, so...
Yeah, the nice thing is we've got such a variation of environments for cattle to be raised in. And
Yes.
that's one thing that's different than the hog and the chicken industry and even the dairy industry. But the thing that we got talking the other day too about, and the programs and stuff and what's going on, but the more science we get involved with breeding cattle and that sort of thing, it excites the young people too. Like, you hear about these young guys coming home from, or young people coming home from university in the grain industry, and there's so many new things and technology and all that going on, and the best and the brightest are pretty excited by that stuff. We don't want to lose our cow kids because you got to do it the same way Grandpa did, kind of thing, right? And so I think that's part of the leadership of the Angus Association. What you guys are doing too is to keep those programs to excite the young people and keep those best and brightest minds going and engaged, I think.
Well, even the difference from when you kids were small and now your kids are small, there's way more programs for them,
Yes.
Yeah.
more opportunities for them to get in, and
Yeah, and scholarships and learning opportunities and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't think there, excuse me, there wasn't even a junior program. I don't think when we were in that I remember.
Not at the Canadian level.
No.
Not at the Canadian level,
Yeah,
you
it
know, you
started
had,
in 99
Yeah.
probably or so.
yeah, and I mean, that's turned huge.
Yeah.
And getting lots of support, and the kids, I mean, you look at again what we're making some pretty good adults there that get up and speak and know the industry, know the showing, and like you were saying earlier, these ones are the ones that are taking over, and that's what it was designed for.
They may not end up as cattle ranchers, but they've got that base, right? So if they become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever they go off to do, at least they know what a cow is, and they can tell their friends and stuff where beef comes from, and be advocates for us as well. So we've had kids come through the programs that are pharmacists, doctors, whatever. There's
Oh, sure.
all kinds of different places and things they're doing. So it's not only just raising our next breeders, but our next citizens that have an Angus base too, which is pretty cool.
And you sit and talk with some of these young people right now that are 12 to 15 years old. It's amazing the knowledge they have, just because of the tools they've got. I mean,
Yes.
the internet is an amazing thing. We had one Angus magazine to look through, when we were kids. So I mean, it's a different deal for what they know and what they're exposed to, for sure.
And that sort of goes in hand how things have changed. Like these kids are going worldwide. We're moving cattle worldwide, which we have for quite a while. And there again, the Angus is so accepted over the world now. You go into Mexico. I mean, there was just the Angus have really taken over in Mexico. Any of the top ones, and they're all out in the herds. If you drive around, you'll see Angus out there. They're not all Brahma and stuff like that and Charolais, but I mean, they've brought their breed up to Charolais down there. They've done a good job, and they're crossing and stuff like that. So it's worldwide. It isn't as small as it was when we started. I mean, we've shipped all over the world, like all you guys have too, and back at first, that never happened. Yeah, it was sort of a dream out there. Then after, you're in it, and I'd say to all these breeders too, what they have to realize, this isn't a short term. You love what you're doing, and that's what makes it, because it's not 2-3 years, and it takes a long time to get what you want, and your name out there, and that's
That World Angus, that the form.
yeah,
That's one of the tools that really got everybody involved.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and travel. It was a great thing. It was as you made contacts, not only just in your own country. It's all over the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Angus is red and black is accepted all over the world. There's only the two associations in the U.S. that are separate. Everybody else registers together. And I believe the World Forum is coming in a few years to the U.S. They are actually going to have it together. It's going to be red and black for the first time in history. And that's been through relationships through Canadian Angus and getting those guys all around the table. So, I mean, it's...
yeah. When we were in Australia, they were two different associations.
Sort of. You can register reds in the normal,
No,
in the
you
main
can.
association.
Yeah.
You always could.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they kind of, much like the Canadian Red Angus Promotion Society, they formed their own society
I
to
was
register
wrong there.
cattle as well. So you can do both, but the reds, a lot of the reds go with the red side.
And the forum in Australia, it was both breeds were showcased for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Argentina, they say Angus is Angus.
Yeah.
They don't, and they mix and match their pedigrees a lot more than we do here.
Oh,
as well.
yeah.
A lot of the catalogs actually, because they don't say red at the front of the name, they just write if it's written in red writing, it's a red animal, and if it's black writing, it's a black animal. So you kind of watch it that way and stuff. But they don't worry about where the red genes and the black genes mix or anything like that, which is kind of cool.
The one thing I really noticed when we were in Scotland at the World Angus Forum is how accepted Canadians are and Canadian cattle. I mean, it's the one thing. We were even in a little pub there, and there's a little guy, and we were standing in line, and the guy turned around and looked up at me, and he says, I hate all you Yankees. And I said, well, I don't like all you little limeys. And he says, I'm Scotch. I said, I'm Canadian. And he goes, hey! And then he was our best friend after that. I think it's that way around the world too. When you start talking about Canadian Angus genetics, is you do get that extra look because they are so known around the world. So,
Tell them about your little story when you meeting your relations in England.
Oh, well, yeah. So we went to the World Forum, and I knew our ancestors came from Yorkshire, so I looked up Yorkshire and Wildman and found a guy, and he actually turned out to be a fifth generation butcher. Has a farm store, and so on the tour we went to visit him and stuff, and in there that Yorkshire area, we actually sent some cattle there many years ago.
Yeah.
You probably did too. Godfrey, do you remember Godfrey?
Oh, yeah.
Thomas or something his name?
I was just going to say Thomas.
Never found him, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but it's a neat part of the world because it's all hills and high land, and it's tougher country than a lot of England is.
Because I've got a book that Harriet had some work done on it, and that was because of cattle that we shipped over there.
Yeah, them up on the moors, and yeah, it's kind of a interesting part of the world up there.
Yeah.
But no, and we've got great friends from all over the place and around the world. I met the Orazzi family from Argentina that we've worked with getting embryos up here and taking embryos with them. I met them at the World Forum and got to know them, and so that's kind of connections you make there. The McLaren family, we were both very good family friends with over the years, and because they'd come over here and we'd been over there and stuff.
Yeah. First ones I met from overseas was McLaren's, plus Willie. Willie Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
He made many a trip from over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
so we toured his farm when we were there as well in Scotland.
I don't know if when you guys toured, when I went over there, I got toured individually, like they'd pick me up in the morning, take me to Joe Blow's place. I'd stay there till the afternoon, see their cattle, then off to the next guys, and off to the. That's the way to see Scotland and England.
Yeah.
You really get meet
because
the
of
people.
parcel.
Yeah, and that was all through cattle. Everybody at that time were buying a pile of cattle over here.
Mhm.
You know, all the politicking and the other stuff didn't get involved in there as much because lots of cattle went over. I'm going to say that's in 85, that we might have shipped 85 to 90. So where a lot of cattle got shipped.
We did the bus tour when we were in Scotland. There was several out there. After the forum was over, we toured around for about another 5 days. And on our bus, we had Robert Ballantyne and Bobby Switzer.
Oh, yeah.
They were rooming together. So I think Ballantyne said that was his 30th trip to Scotland. So he knew everything, every place, everybody. So it was like having a tour guide right beside you all the time on the bus. So.
Yeah.
But to look at that history was amazing to me. You know, we talk about, we were still living in sod houses here in late 1800s, and trying to figure out how to get to somewhere. And over there, they had already been, 7, 8 generations of living on farms.
Yeah.
So it was.
Well, if you want a little politicking that never has left Scotland and England.
Oh yes.
Neil Massey.
Yeah.
Can't remember his wife's name, but anyhow, she was taking us out and you stop up on their hill, and it's just beautiful looking back down. And she said, of all those places you're seeing, maybe 10% are owned by Scottish. The rest are still owned by the English.
Yeah.
And she says we never forget that, and she said if you want to know how we never get to forget it, when the games are on, the Olympic Games are on, she said when we win, England has won, and when we lose, it's England and what's combined the
United Kingdom.
Yeah, the United Kingdom lost. Same guy, whether it was Scott or not.
It's a Scottish
she said, and if we notice it, nobody else would ever pick up on that. But that's how.
Yeah.
And that's how many years. I mean, they're going back, like you say, 600 years, 700 years.
Yeah, and when we were down around the borders, where between England and Scotland, and my one thing what I wanted to see over there is I wanted to be in those border communities and see a border collie, because that's where they came from.
Oh yeah.
So one farm, there was one, and Brent Stewart and I were standing beside each other, and this guy had a border collie dog sitting beside him, and there was a bunch of sheep down in the bottom paddock, and Brent said, "I'd like to see your dog go down and get those sheep." And the young Scottish lad goes, "So'd I." Apparently the dog was not very good.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
So we got to see the border collie, but not in action.
Yeah.
I think we were raised in a environment where the greater good was important, and looking out for others, and wanting to serve. Both Mom and Dad took part in a lot of different associations over the years, whether it was stock growers or the Craps, the Angus Association, our community foundation here in town, in Merithorpe too. So I think that was instilled in us, that kind of responsibility to serve, I guess, and to help out others and be part of a leadership group. So I think it was fairly important to me. It's something we're fairly proud of, I think, and important to do that. I know going forward now, my kids want to be the third generation, and want to try that down the road someday too. I think it's something that was fairly important to us, and we were kind of raised that way, to help out others and be involved.
The arena too.
Yeah, and the community and everything has been a big part of it.
Yeah, and I sat on the Calgary Stampede committee for the steer show down there for about 20 years. But other than that, I'd never been on another board, like a provincial board or anything like that. I went straight to the Canadian board, and I really had no big vision of being a president until you actually get on the board and start, interacting and getting on, what it's about to be in governance and doing your part and the greater good, like Kirk had said, about what is better for the association and all of its members, not just in that little bubble where you live at it yourself and in your own hometown or as such. But so once I got on the board and got more involved, then it was definitely one of those things I wanted to do, was be a president and serve. And it's not really that I had any personal agendas at it. You are a servant of the board when you get on there as president, and I was honored to do it. It was good.
Well, when I was involved, it was all new to me. Like it's because it was in 1971 that we got the first purebred cattle, and before that I'd been with commercial cows for 3 generations before. And so
It will be too much.
actually, in one way, it was an advantage to not have any knowledge on the purebred business, and
Yeah. Well, you kind of join. I think you join boards, especially in your breed associations. And Jim, you'd back me up on this probably. You've got certain things you want to see changed, right?
Yeah,
And you've got agendas, and it doesn't take long to get involved in the group to know that the greater good is what needs to happen. And sure, you've got some things that have bugged you and agendas, but those agendas kind of go away pretty fast.
yeah.
Well, I
Should
guess,
say the good end of it.
like I said before, we've got lots of good friends out of that. And I think when David was on the board, there was quite a bit of controversial stuff that went on. And so then you we're not really part of it, so you just stand back and hope they make the right decisions, I guess. And then to have the 2 boys, like I think, I may be wrong, but I think David's the first one red breeder that served as president. I think. Like full red breeder.
Yeah, I was just going to say full red breeder, yeah.
Yes. No, there was certainly, others
Oh, yeah.
that probably have had 2 in the last several years. We actually have some blacks too.
Huh.
But I guess
Finally come
when your
around.
kids move on, like our kids were brought up in the Angus business. Kirk was 2 months old when I took on the secretary thing for the Red Angus. So because he was about 4 years behind Brad, he got to go to all kinds of, like I dragged him around. He went to sale. You were at Ken Fraser's very first sale.
Yeah. I remember we were playing I Spy. And all we saw was wheat fields. So it got a little old. Saskatchewan
Of
doesn't have
course,
a lot to see.
when I was in the secretary part of it, I guess David couldn't go. Like we had moved up here, we didn't have any help, and so the kids got to go to all kinds of things. We went to Red Angus field days, and so they've, right from little kids, they were sort of groomed for this, I suppose. Hopefully they did some good.
Well, Don McKenzie, a past president as well, and he's watched Kirk and I grow up since we were little kids, and he's not even shy to say it. He says, "I can't believe he even turned out," when he looks at me. So I always get a chuckle out of it, and he says it every time I see him. So
Yeah. Well, I know for sure in mine was Rob Hedlewaychuk, if you can believe that. But he was. We were very good friends, but he helped me lots in the breed. Lots. Yeah.
Yeah, and Robbie he started as an Angus breeder, right? And then was involved in the sales management and stuff. And because he had cattle in the Hayshaker sales with you guys in the early days, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a wise choice on his part.
To be involved with you guys or
No.
to get into sales management?
Both. Get into sales management. They say some people weren't farmers. Well, Rob wasn't a rancher, let me tell you.
Yeah.
He knew cattle inside out and backwards, and he helped a lot of people in this breed. You take Doug Henderson and Rob, and that's who the Butch down Now there was another great guy down that we met through that, Butch Bailey, that from Ontario. He knew cattle, personality. You know, it takes those kind of people to make this breed all work, and they definitely did.
Yeah, and Rob was the kind of guy that, you know, when you had a field day, he'd be on the lawn. He played right on this lawn right here with a bunch of us kids playing catch.
Oh,
You know, he was one of those guys that involved everybody,
yeah,
and he always was. So
yeah.
he was.
Yeah, that was kind of sad that both Henderson and Hollowaychuk passed away.
Yeah.
Practically with the same.
Well, a month apart or two,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we sat in an airport with Doug Henderson one time. We were waiting to come home from Regina or someplace. And he could talk and talk and talk. Like, he just had so much in his head. And had been around, well, they'd been in the Angus for ever and ever. Kirk, did you not buy your first cow from Henderson?
Yeah, my first cow came from Doug's mom, actually.
Yes.
Because Doug's mom had, they were predominantly black Angus breeders, but Doug's mom had some reds, and so I bought a black red carrier cow from Doug's mom in, I said 1978, she was actually born in 1978, so I bought her as a 4 or 5 year old cow, but I remember she was,
Kirk,
yeah.
Kirk, as a little guy, had one of those black Angus bull toy things. He drug it around because he was not going to be red, he was going to be black.
Yeah, I had black ones for quite a while at the start there. I think Doug was a mentor for me, I think, and got to be kind of friends with him over the years. And we'd gone down to Argentina together on the World Forum Tour and met a bunch of people down there. So then about 3 or 4 years after that, I was touring some Argentinians around, and we'd been out east around Camrose and stuff, and we were heading through, we were going to go to Innisfail, and we kind of crested the hill by Lacombe at near Doug's place. And I was like, geez, we should go visit Doug. And hadn't called ahead or anything. And so I called Linda and I said, I've got some Argentinians with me. We're just going to stop in for coffee quick and have a visit with you. And Linda says, yeah, that sounds good. Where are you guys at? And I said, well, I can see your house. And so she kind of went, okay. And so we pulled in. It was about 7:30 and we hadn't had supper yet, me and the boys, but there was 2 guys with me. And I said, well, we won't say we're hungry or anything. If she offers, just say no, and we'll have supper afterwards. And so we got in there, and Doug got showing us stuff and entertaining us. And about 10 o'clock, then some sausage and cheese came out, and it just got devoured. And had quite a bit of wine, and we ended up at 2 a.m. we were playing ping pong, and we spent the night. And just kind of shows you what Doug and Linda were like. And yeah, so it was cool people like that. And yeah, and I think I had some mentors on the Angus board as well. When as a younger guy joining the board, there was lots of older fellers like John Dyvenvoorden I'd spoke of earlier, and Dyson David Bulldog were both on there at the time. Different guys like that I got to be friends with, and guys that were dad's age and stuff that I got to learn from, I guess, quite a bit too, just through that process. And Doug Fee as well. And I was pretty young when Doug was CEO and got to work together with him as well. So lots of people like that over the years.
Just a little trivia. My dad bought a stud horse from Sam Henderson when I was about 5 years old, I guess. And Sam used to live just across the road from where Doug lived.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Sam was Doug's granddad?
Yeah.
Right. And they would have had Angus cattle throughout all those years.
Yeah, they had Angus cattle forever.
Yeah.
And but he'd bought this stud horse at Denver Stock Show. It was a quarter horse, Palmetto. And so when we moved to Millerville, we had lots of horses. And this stud horse was part of that.
Oh, yeah.
And,
But for us too, the ones that were around, of course, Mackenzie's were, and Rod Mackenzie was kind of a mentor to a lot of the younger red breeders. he knew all kinds of things too. He'd been everywhere.
And Rod passed away in the 70s sometime, right?
You know, I think it was 76.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he was
Never
the main breeder of the Mackenzie brothers, right?
Well,
Yeah,
he was the showman.
He liked
Yeah.
the showing.
He
He
did
was-
the showing, and he did all the the PR work. He was never married, and he was a real ambassador kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And mine, I've kind of got two. The one did early on and still to this day on the cattle end of things is Jim Leachman. And he, to me, was the ultimate in marketing
Marketing, yes.
and, of having a vision. And back even in the late 80s and early 90s, he had a vision of being red and black cattle. And he had, I think, 30 head of show cattle at Denver in the yards. And there was 5 different breeds represented, and they were all reds and blacks. And so he knew that was coming, and he had the foresight to be able to see that. And to me, that kind of knowledge and breeding and just being that cutting edge, to me, was incredible. And even to this day, he's still involved taking pictures and whatnot with Seth. And I mean, he's in his late 70s, I would think now.
I
And
think
He'd probably be 80 or better.
yeah, but he's still going strong and still very passionate about the cattle. And my other one is a guy by the name of Dr. John Edwards. And John was come up here to do some cattle evaluation seminars through Stampede years ago. And he's had a few different jobs. He's worked for the American Limousine Association in Express Ranches. And he was also a professor for years at Texas A&M University. And for me, that guy could talk to anybody about anything. You could absolutely talk to him about anything. And he was up to date on current affairs, history, cattle, people, politics, whatever it was, he could talk about it. And he could sit there and just like you were reading it in a book. So to me, those kind of guys are really kind of neat and pretty instrumental in where we are today, is because they were great role models.
I think Jim Leachman really influenced the Red Roundup sale
Yes,
too.
and breeders too.
Well, probably, yeah. But certainly he had a lot of, like Brett says, he had a vision, like he knew what that sale was supposed to look like or what he thought it should look like.
Yeah.
And he was sales management for quite a few years, actually.
Can I ask one question, Tina? Why did you guys not think of the acronym? As she says craps 3 times.
Well, what happened was these guys around Miller Brother was 4 of them, and we'd all been using black bulls for in the commercial herds. Well, in those days they were discounting the darn black cattle at
Oh, yeah.
the feeder cattle and whatever, and they decided maybe they'd think about looking for these red Angus they'd heard about. So there was 4 of them. Dave Glaister and Michael Rogers and Earl Watson and David went off to the States on a little tour. There was I don't know how we found out, but there was a dispersal sale in Oregon. So they just went to buy a bull. Well, somehow David come home with these females, and it just started, and then we started looking like where we could buy females, and there weren't that many in Canada at the time. So then they got on this letter writing campaign, and we wrote all these letters, and I think we got the names from the American Red Angus. So we had all these letters. Every family had to write so many letters. And one fellow wrote back from Cutbank, Montana, and said he didn't have any heifers for sale, but if we found any that were surplus, let him know.
That's the only letter you got back?
I think so. No, I think we got some responses, but whatever. Anyhow, that group, they were all right there in Millville, and we decided we'd have a field day. And I think, did we get Dan McKinnon to be the speaker? Because they had a few Red
Yeah.
Angus in that time, like
It's
Strathmore.
commercial. They bought both.
Yeah. Anyhow, so we had this field day, and I don't remember. We advertised it, whatever. Ended up with a lot of people there, really. So then they came up with, we need to have a group. So we sat down that evening. There was a supper, whatever. And you tried to include everybody, but sometimes it didn't work out. Anyhow, there were 12 breeders and decided they were going to form this group. And actually the name came from Ken Fraser. I guess we didn't really think about it at the time. But Ken Fraser was there, and there's 12 people that are recognized as the forming group. So, and then it just kind of took off from there. Somebody said, "Who's got a pencil?" I said, "I got a pencil." That was the secretary.
Yeah.
And the meeting and the supper were at Michael Rogers' place, so he got to be president.
He was sitting at the head of the table.
Yeah.
And I think Ken Fraser ended up being the vice president because he was the only Saskatchewan guy there. And we put Rod Mackenzie in as a director, and that was the original group. So I don't know, it just grew. I have a little book where I wrote membership in. And the first year, I think there was maybe 29 or 30 people, whatever. And it just grew. And in the first Red Angus Field Day was, or tour, I guess we called it a tour, was in 76, I believe. But in the fall of 73, that would have been the fall of 72 when we formed the society. The first Red Roundup was the fall of 73. And there was, some commercial heifers in that sale and some purebreds. And when you look back at it now, the little catalog is pretty little.
Yeah.
Pretty amateur, eh?
Well, your dad drew the cover.
Yeah, my dad did the cover with India ink and the pens and, yeah.
In the first Red Roundup, they had Ken Hurlburt was the auctioneer.
Well, actually, we went to Fort McLeod auction and they managed the
Managed the
sale.
sale.
Yeah,
Well, we had a committee. We formed a sale committee.
but it was in Innisfail, the sale.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they had a young auctioneer, a guest auctioneer from Innisfail to do the commercial cattle.
We were just being nice.
And that was Jack Danes.
Yeah.
He was the young
that right?
auctioneer, yeah.
And Dick was there at the first one, and Glenn Good was a field man at that time.
Yeah,
Oh, Glenn.
he worked ring.
This is Brian's
Did
dad.
he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian's dad, and he worked ring, and I do have some pictures of the first Red Roundup.
Yeah. And the young Jack Danes just looks like one of the Danes boys now.
Yeah.
Danny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was slim and trim.
Yeah.
He was
When
strong.
Danny was slim and trim.
Yeah.
Too.
Danny's actually Jack's youngest brother.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
kind of an overlap. There's
Yeah,
cousins or there's nephews that are older than
Yeah,
Donnie.
yeah.
But that Red
Yeah.
Roundup, right from the beginning, we had a selector. And John Milne, who worked for Fort McLeod, did the selecting for several years. So, and I was always on the sales committee. But yeah, and then there was no money. Meetings were, you just went.
Yeah, and some of those early catalogs, it was not very much money involved.
Prices
well,
were
that
so
was
great.
probably-
That's when prices were down.
Yeah, it wasn't just the
Yeah.
red cattle. It was indicative of,
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
yeah.
Superstar sale.
Yeah,
That was
$375 to $500 for some of the cattle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
It
Jim, the
was just
Superstar was right around the same time as Roundup.
yeah.
That's starting. Yeah.
Yes. The
Yeah,
start,
yeah, I was
within
gonna
a
say-
couple of
yeah.
years or thereabouts. Yeah.
Well, did it take over from Cross Canada?
Well, yeah, I guess that
I think
fall.
it did.
Well, it could have been.
Yeah.
It was an association sale, though.
Yeah, it was in
Superstar.
Alberta.
Superstar.
Yeah, it would have been in Alberta. Yeah.
Yeah.
Calf
Yeah.
sale.
And at
Was
the,
it
yeah.
always at Farm Fair or just in the later years?
I think it was always at
in-
I
farm.
think it was
I
always at
don't
Farm
know.
Fair. I can't remember it anywhere else.
I can't remember. But the very first Superstar, of course, we nominated, and we could have been in, but Dennis Erickson was the selector. He was slim and trim too.
Oh, yeah.
And he came and he said to David, I don't think it's time to be putting these cattle in this sale yet. And we didn't enter, and we never did enter the
Probably
Superstar.
never did.
I don't think we ever did.
Maybe in the late years.
Maybe, I don't
remember showing
remember.
there.
Yeah, but those two sales were fairly close to each other.
Yeah, they would have been. Yeah.
Just to take it back before on your history, Dad bought a bull, Black Angus bull at the Calgary Bull Sale, and we got a bunch of red calves from him, and that's really got what started the red thing. And
Oh,
Thinking about it then, because he had a red gene.
I remember he had a bobtail.
where'd he come from?
I can't remember.
Because you know there wasn't a lot around that had
No.
red
Yeah.
genes way back then.
Yeah, and then I guess in the early 80s, you guys decided you wanted to have a show too, right? And that
Yeah.
happened in
Well,
Lloyd, and that was run by the. So the first Red Angus show in Canada, strictly Red Angus, was in Lloyd and was run by the Promotion Society, right?
And
It
that
didn't have
was
anything to do with
likely
the
more like
association.
82 or 83.
It was 82.
Yeah, 82.
Because I was done in 82 and Sandy Roseveare took over and
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't in on the negotiations and stuff.
Right. So we went to Lloyd for probably 6 or 7 years, and then Edmonton and Regina decided to have red shows at that point. Because in the early 70s and stuff, Reds used to show more, but it got to be in the 80s where it just was two different sets of cattle, and we were kind of feeling like we didn't have a chance. Kind of thing, right? At Bashaw, we showed together all the time, and
Yeah,
that went
yeah.
well, but we didn't. And then ever since, it's been separate shows basically. But and Leachman come up to those first ones and had pretty good cattle and stuff.
Well, and I think when we first started showing in Agribition, it was sort of a collaboration thing. They were all stalled together, the Reds. And we kind of made sure that there was, enough cattle there, talking people into taking them.
Right, so that was part of your
But there
promotion
was-
as a group then too.
Kind of, yeah. But there was big black shows there
Oh yeah,
in
back,
those years, the
Yeah,
earlier
yeah.
years.
No, we were quite surprised when we had the first red calf, like out of the black bull.
no, yeah. I was too.
You
Oh,
should
yeah,
tell
remember
a story
that
about
Thomas?
your
Yeah.
Well, I had
Was
my first.
Prospector the first one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sam's prospector.
yeah, and it came out. I bought blacks from the mother came out of Edom.
Jimmy Grant?
Jimmy Grant.
Oh yeah.
That's where I bought the mother from. Well, he never had a red ever. I mean, they were
No.
blacks for. He was a.
What he admitted anyway.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say because he was a definite that way. There was no.
Yeah.
It was black. That was it. And then bred her to Samurai. And again, nobody knew there was a gene there. Come out that
No.
morning. Only one in the stall, so I knew it had to be. Yeah. And I mean, good cow. Went on. I mean, she's one of the foundation in a lot of red
Yeah.
cattle.
Yeah.
A prospector come out of that and told. So
the lassie cow that ended up with Mackenzie in those
Yeah,
first, she did
yeah.
well.
yeah, and she did well same there. And that would, but I'm thinking of Russell Rinka.
Yeah,
Yes.
He said he told me he's going to do me a favor and buy that one. I know he made a fair bit of money out of that prospector. bull.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did.
yeah, yeah.
Geez, there was another red calf. Remember that?
Joe
The Black Angus calf.
Joe Ardell.
Oh, Joe,
Yeah.
he got a red.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he was. Well, then Jim Good bought it, the bull, and then I bought it from Jim.
Oh,
Old Joe got the last laugh. They weren't very good.
Yeah.
Well, but see,
But Dad and Joe never got along so great. He was
Yeah.
a
Well,
red guy in
because-
his country.
we
Oh.
were red in his country,
Oh.
and he wouldn't really sell it, so we had to buy it through Jim Good.
yeah. Joe was definitely one of the black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Never do the guy at a penny. He'd come to the Cross Canada's where he really,
Yeah.
and he had
Yeah.
buyers in the States.
Yep.
Forget where they were at, and they bought his, and they paid really good money.
Yeah. Because I remember at that sale, he said, "That's too much money for that heifer."
Yeah, but he took it.
Took it
Yeah.
anyway.
And he had those, first time I met him, he had the old hat down,
Had the
coveralls on,
yeah.
like they were ripped, And that was it. That's the way. So you thought he didn't have a penny.
His sale garb.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's
he
the
was
way-
pretty much straight Canadian.
Yeah, he
bred
was
pedigree.
Canadian.
And so is his son still to this day. Is
Oh, is
pretty
he?
much still
Oh,
straight Canadian.
yeah. They
bred cattle.
went that way.
You know, when we first moved up north too, we joined, there was a Northern Alberta Angus Club at that time. And
Gee, we weren't fussy when we let everybody in.
they
were we?
let us in. No,
She
it
knows
was a-
everything.
And actually,
Just ask her.
then they decided they were going to have that northern sale, because I was on the first sale committee, because I was the only one who had much sale experience.
Oh, when you had it at Gaines.
Yes. Yeah.
I see that,
Bob
yeah.
Kane was on that committee
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first, really got into that. I think I bought 10 that day. Yeah, that's where I bought, well, not the first ones, but tied into the first one at
Yeah.
Gaines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bob turned out to be my wife's grandpa.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Didn't,
not.
I knew Bob long before I knew Jill.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was on the, Bob was on the committee with the World Forum. When they had-
In
and
the
then-
85
in
World
85.
Forum, Bob Kane was on the committee, and
Bob was a
Yeah.
super guy.
yeah.
Lucky he got into the Angus. Well, he was in the Herefords before.
Yeah, he was in
yeah.
Hereford. And
Yeah.
they had-
He was a hotel owner originally,
Yeah.
and then he got
Yeah.
into the cattle and had
Yeah.
the farm. And
He was great for the Angus business, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
He's, have you ever read his book?
I'll get you a copy.
Go
Huh?
ahead.
He
Right,
wrote his
I haven't-
memoirs.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, we got two
Oh,
boxes.
he
of
raised foxes there too.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it rigs,
Interesting.
rooms, and
Ranches.
ranches? Yeah.
Oh,
Well, and he was probably an asset on your committee because he came from a different, not just ranching too, right?
Business
I think he
and-
was
yeah.
the business.
finance chair or something like that too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been pretty lucky to get people involved from different things, just like Bob as past president too. He came with a different skill set and different things he could do for
Yeah,
different
And that's what you
association
need.
stuff. Oh yeah.
Oh,
you
yes.
need all those kind of guys.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'd say over the years though, I mean, all the sales, I think that's another thing maybe we never touched on, is how good lots of these sales, they were all black or red, but they were all breed sales. Sort of like the Northern Angus Club and all that, the Northern Sale and those. And they made the breed because everybody got, now everybody is more or less their own sales.
Yes.
Just like bull sales were all, you went together, now it's all turned out, everybody has their own bull sales. So it's not near the time that everybody had again with everybody, because everybody, like the Northern Sale, you had 40, 50 contributors, so you got to know everybody, and just like Red Roundup was the same thing, it was all in there, you got to know, like you were saying,
Well,
everybody.
nobody had enough to have the
Yeah,
sales.
nobody had,
Yeah.
you know, then
Yeah.
over the years.
And a
there's
lot
still-
of breeders got created from those sales.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And a place for them to sell their cattle.
Yeah,
going
and still
forward
is.
again,
I mean,
right?
you look
Yeah.
at the Northern's running how many years now? I don't know.
Maybe 40.
I was going to say, I think it's in that 40-ish.
Well,
And
yeah,
the
it
new
would be.
breeders that come out of that sale is unbelievable, the
Yeah.
amount of breeders that come out of that sale. Yeah,
Because it takes a lot of cattle to have your own sale.
yeah,
I mean, and to do it every year.
yeah,
I mean, where these consignment sales, if you can put 3 or 4, it doesn't take the whole heart out of your herd every time. Too.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, even the hay shaker sale, you know, to do that every year and have females, you know, it was
Yes.
only females we sold. But we all had fairly good sized herds
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
4 of us. Once
And then
we-
you had to buy, but you were buying some too, and they all,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
half of them work out. Right?
Yeah,
Usually
oh, yeah,
when you
yeah.
bring from a different place into your
Yeah.
environment, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But and I think a big part of those consignment sales was people buying cattle back and forth and supporting each other too,
Yeah.
because we all don't need another heifer, but it was part of making those sales work and you know,
Well, I think if you go back to what we said right off the beginning, like I always said, I could buy cattle off of you, I could buy cattle off of you or whoever, but there was, why was I want to come there? I mean, sure, there's some you want, I need that bull or I need this, but a lot of sales were the people you met and you said, well, I'm going to go. Lots of times you just went for the social and
For
come
the
back with
pie.
3-4. Yeah, and the pie.
Yeah, well, the Hayshaker sale, especially when we were young, we all went to party because
Oh.
we got the best barn dance in the country.
Yeah.
And you'd buy one or two. You'd see something
Yeah,
when you
no,
got there. Right?
that's- yeah. Oh,
You either
yeah.
saw a heifer you liked or a girl.
Yeah, yeah. And pie, we
Yeah.
got those, I know, homemade pie. I mean, when you see the tables and tables of pies, I know people come and we say, well, we used to feed 400 people
No.
on an average, 300 to 400 all the time. Really? Well, there was that many involved, and
Yeah,
turned out,
No,
yeah, the
you-
party might have brought it. I think the cattle brought them all.
yeah, I'm sure it did.
I went past the old barn here about a month ago and
Oh,
brought
did you?
back quite a few memories.
Yeah.
I got a buddy that lives just north of there,
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Doc Keith. He
Oh,
was
Keith.
just on the other side of the slough.
Yeah, yeah, he bought geese. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah, a lot of cattle went through that barn.
Oh, yeah.
No, we used to say in the early days of the Red Angus, we never made any money, but we had lots of fun.
Yeah, 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 that's for sure.
Well, and it was a different time though, because if you wanted to see the cattle, you had to be there. There wasn't any
Oh,
Yeah,
videos
yeah,
or
that's right. Yeah.
online sales or anything. You know, it's a different world now.
What would be happening today with the COVID
Yeah,
if, you know, these sales, everybody had these sales and they still worked super this spring.
Yeah.
Everybody got sales off and all
they say the
done.
farm sales are better now than they were
Yeah,
Yeah,
before.
that's what they
Yeah.
think.
But there was quite a few years before we even had pictures in the Red Roundup catalog.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
catalogs.
Oh, just pedigree.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, the first, have you ever seen that first? Like it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
We got it handy?
Typewritten. Yeah. But no,
One
it
of
was,
them, I only had a couple, and one is at the Angus office. Somebody borrowed it, but I said they could keep it.
It's on display right in the front.
Well, I had another one. Yes. Yeah, they're pretty crude.
oh, yeah.
But they got the job done.
Oh,
when I was in college, I was in a marketing class and we got to do our bull sale catalog. We printed it at college
Oh.
as part of this class.
oh, is that
So we
right?
did all the type setting and everything, and so we get it and we print it, and it's all blue ink, blue pictures
Oh,
and everything,
oh.
because Old College color was everything they printed in was blue. So we got this one catalog that's completely blue. They were going to change the ink for some school
Yeah, yeah,
project.
yeah.
I guess I don't know how that all worked. This is
Did you use the
could
cattle?
be 90 or 91.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, for
Huh?
sure. Shit, it was free.
Yeah, yeah.
Saved a lot of money.
Yeah.
But for years with the Red Roundup catalog, again, we had no computers. All I had was a typewriter.
Yeah.
And I used to make a dummy catalog. Every single, like, fold a piece of paper in half, and
Oh,
this goes on that page, and this goes on, like, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of fun.
Well, and we used to have to set up the picture, and then they'd have to show like it was 24% of the size or something like that, to fit it into the spots, and
Yes.
taking pictures of cattle. The one year it was cold, and we were taking pictures of bulls, and we got to go all the way to Whitecourt to get them developed, which is 45 minutes away. And there wasn't a single picture on it. It got loaded wrong or something. So you sit around in Whitecourt for 2 hours waiting for these photos to get developed, and there ain't a single one there. Wasted a whole day.
Yeah, it's sure different, hey?
Yeah, it's different now.